Every time you take a sip of tea or swallow a capsule of medicine, you are participating in a biological peace treaty that was signed in blood. Before the labs, before the pharmacies, before the scientific method, there was a forest. And in that forest, every single thing you saw was trying to either eat you or keep you from eating it. Have you ever wondered about the person who discovered that a specific leaf could stop a fever? And the person, perhaps their brother, who discovered that the leaf right next to it would stop a heart? How many bodies had to be buried before we knew the difference between a miracle and a catastrophe? And more importantly, why did we keep trying? This is not just a story of trial and error. That's too simple. It's too clean. To say ancient humans just experimented ignores the terrifying reality of being a biological machine trapped in an environment that is essentially a minefield of chemical warfare. Plants are not passive. They do not want to be eaten. Over millions of years, they developed a sophisticated, invisible arsenal. They built alkaloids, glycosides, and neurotoxins. They learned how to paralyze lungs, how to liquefy intestines, and how to stop a nervous system cold. Your brain still remembers this. It's why the back of your tongue is hypersensitive to bitterness. That's not a design flaw. It's an alarm system. It is the ghost of 1,000 ancestors screaming at you from the past, warning you that bitter often means dead. But here's what's strange. Against every instinct of survival, we didn't just run away from the plants. We leaned in. We became the only creature on Earth that decided to turn the enemy's weapons into our own survival. Imagine a small band of hunters and gatherers 200,000 years ago. One of them is dying, not from a predator, but from an infection, a slow, hot, throbbing rot in the leg. To the group, this isn't just a medical problem, it's an existential one. The person is a burden, yet they are a brother. And then, someone notices a goat. This is a concept scientists call zoopharmacognosy. It's a mouthful, but it describes something hauntingly simple: animals self-medicating. Chimpanzees will chew on bitter pith that they usually avoid when they are infected with parasites. Pregnant elephants in Kenya have been seen seeking out specific trees to induce labor. Birds will use cigarette butts or certain herbs in their nests to kill mites. Our ancestors watched. They were the ultimate observers. They noticed that when a deer was wounded, it ate a specific root. They noticed that when a predator was sick, it chewed on a specific grass. But that's not what scientists discovered that truly changes this story. Observing animals can only get you so far. A goat can digest things that will melt a human liver. A bird can eat berries that will cause a human brain to seize. The terrifying part is that at some point, observation had to turn into participation. Someone had to be the first. Think about the psychology of that moment. You are hungry, or you are in pain, and you are holding a plant that looks identical to a dozen others that killed your tribesmen last winter. How did we differentiate? Anthropologists believe we developed a sensory taxonomy. We didn't have a periodic table, so we used our bodies as the laboratory. We used the rule of three: touch, smell, taste. First, you rub the plant on the sensitive skin of your inner arm to see if it burns. You wait. If the skin doesn't blister, you move to the lips. You wait. If the lips don't swell, you place a tiny fragment on the tongue. And then something even stranger happened. We didn't just look for what tasted good. We looked for what felt different. The discovery of medicine wasn't just about finding cures. It was about the discovery of altered states. When our ancestors found willow bark for pain, they were feeling the salicylic acid, the precursor to aspirin, thinning their blood and dampening the fire in their nerves. When they found ephedra, they felt their hearts race and their lungs open. But for every person who felt their lungs open, another felt their throat close. The history of herbalism is a map of graves. We know what is safe because we remember who didn't come back from the forest. We are the survivors of a 2-million-year-long game of Russian roulette. And this is where everything changes. As we gathered this knowledge, it did something to our brains. It forced us to develop a specialized form of memory. We had to categorize thousands of shades of green. We had to remember that a plant was a medicine in the spring, but a poison in the fall. We had to remember that the root was life, but the seed was death. This created the first intellectuals of the human race, the shamans, the medicine women, the keepers of the green flame. They weren't just healers, they were the first database. They understood a truth that modern medicine often forgets. The difference between a medicine and a poison is usually just the dose. Digitalis, from the foxglove plant, can restart a failing heart. It can also stop a healthy one. The poppy can take away the most agonizing pain, or it can put you into a sleep from which you never wake up. We were living on a knife's edge. Every meal was a gamble. Every remedy was a risk. And yet, this relationship with the poisonous world is what allowed us to dominate it. By learning to differentiate, we stopped being victims of our environment and started being its chemists. But there is a darker curiosity here. Why is the world so full of poison in the first place? From an existential perspective, the plants were here first. They spent hundreds of millions of years perfecting their chemistry before we even stood upright. They aren't herbs or medicine to the forest. They are barricades. When we take those chemicals into our bodies, we are essentially hacking the plant's defense system. We are taking the very thing the plant made to kill us and using it to live longer. It's a form of biological theft. And we've become so good at it that we've forgotten the cost. We've forgotten the millions of years of tasting and dying that resulted in the bottle of pills in your cabinet. Your brain still carries the scars of this era. Have you ever wondered why toddlers go through a phase where they refuse to eat anything green? Why they suddenly become picky eaters the moment they become mobile? Evolutionary psychologists call it behavioral neophobia. The moment a human child is old enough to wander away from their mother in the ancestral savanna, their brain flips a switch. It tells them, if you didn't see an adult eat it, don't touch it, especially if it's green, especially if it's bitter. That annoying phase of childhood is actually a high-tech survival program. It is the ancient fear of the forest, encoded in the DNA of a 3-year-old sitting in a high chair. We are still afraid of the plants. We just don't realize it anymore. So, how did we do it? How did we survive the minefield? We did it through a terrifyingly beautiful combination of animal observation, slow-motion suicide, and an obsessive need to remember. We turned our deaths into data. We turned our agony into an inheritance. Every time you smell a crushed leaf of mint, or avoid a berry that looks too shiny, you are hearing a whisper from a prehistoric ancestor who wasn't as lucky as you are. The forest hasn't changed. The plants are still armed. They are still sitting out there, brewing alkaloids and preparing their defenses. The only thing that has changed is that we have a book that tells us which ones to kiss and which ones to kill. Next time you walk through a garden, look at the plants not as decorations, but as silent, stationary chemists. Realize that you are walking through a pharmacy where half the bottles are unlabeled and the other half are filled with acid. We are only here because we learned to read the labels written in the bones of those who came before us. The world is not a welcoming place. It is a beautiful, green, lethal puzzle. And you are the descendant of the people who finally figured out how to put the pieces together without dying. But remember, the plants are still waiting, and they have all the time in the world.